Welcome to the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast.
Murphy's back from his weekend, a new man.
I am. Do I look different?
I'm
not.
Don't. Your hair looks cute today.
Oh, thanks.
You fixed it nice.
Thank you.
A little
Has
bit
nothing
of
to do with the retreat, does it?
No, I'm just complimenting.
Actually, that was one of my takeaways from the retreat, Sam.
Work on hair.
Better hair presentation.
Number 4.
No, I do this annual retreat just as sort of like a mental reset. You know, when you go day after day after day doing the same thing, same routine, and routine is good, but, you know, if you don't actually make a deliberate stop to really take a look at, okay, what do I want to be focused on? You know, what I would like to have done at the end of the year.
It's almost like a zoom out.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's kind of like a New Year's resolution on steroids because, you know,
in June.
Right, because you're really zooming way out and you're making a commitment to yourself on just a few things. And so I try to just come away with one or two things that, you know, will be a different thing, you know, that and I may not find something new every year. That's one thing that I realized on this retreat. And you don't necessarily have to, because all the basics are always going to be the most important. That's why the health part and the exercise are still the top two for me.
That's nice.
Although I blew that on the trip.
The first year was the hardest then, really, because you're starting from scratch.
Yeah, the first year that I did it, honestly, was because I didn't know what I was doing. It was just nothing but random ideas, and every idea that was coming to me, I just wrote down on literally big pieces of paper. I mean, I old schooled the first one. I literally I went to Office Depot and I bought one of those big clunk chart easel type things with these self-adhesive, they're like huge Post-it notes. And, you know, and I'm sure the Airbnb that I stayed at would love to know that I stuck those all over their walls. Safely, didn't pull off any paint. But anyway, I literally had an entire living room area covered with just random ideas, and then the next hours were pulling those ideas together and categorizing them for, you know, personal and professional and all that. And so that's why the first year was really, you know, the longest, but it also felt the most productive, honestly, out of all of them, because this massive purge, you know.
For anyone who's just now listening to this and you don't understand, it's knowing who you are. Not that this wouldn't be a great exercise for everybody. It really would be for anyone's life to zoom out, look at your life, what's working, what would you like to improve on. And for Murphy, that's like personal, it's professional for sure, because you're just a very driven person. And then like the financial, you know, I know that the first year there was family on the list, meaning you wanted to do this, that, and the other thing with our girls. And so I feel like it's the perfect thing for you. I don't know that it's for everybody, but then again, when you think about it, just because you're not wired that way, you know, to set goals and make sure you're on track with those goals, it doesn't mean you couldn't benefit from doing this. Everybody could benefit from doing this.
Well, and being wired is exactly that's the whole reason for doing it, because we're all wired a certain way. A lot of it comes from our upbringing.
Yes.
A lot of it comes from our early adulthood, or things that we tend to accept things as fact, especially when we're kids. That's why you're talking about kids being such sponges and everything. You really wind up being hardwired with a lot of filters. And, you know, some that your parents give you are great, and they put you on the right path, and they're wonderful. But there are some things that, unfortunately, are the wrong filters that they put in front of your head. They wind up being barriers for people. They cause you to think that the world is nothing but a bad place, and that, you know, it's. Well,
it's just it's their view, and then when you become an adult,
right,
you start to think for yourself.
Right. And so that's why, I mean, you don't have to go away for those kinds of exercises, but just challenging yourself to think differently, or even taking all your concerns and things which are legitimate because they're yours, putting them on paper and trying to look at them as if someone else were advising you, you know? But for me, that it's become a little bit different, and it's important to me because I'm older. You know, Jodi, you and I have girls that are now grown. They're not even living at the house, you know?
Well,
they're about to.
One of them might be young, and that's okay.
We tried getting rid of them.
No, absolutely. But, you know, the longer that
Life
you've been
different.
in a career, and, you know, I lost my mom 8 years ago. My dad passed 3 years ago. There are things that just change in your life. And so it actually becomes more challenging the more set in our ways we become to actually stop and look at doing something that is different. So that's the reason that I do it. I have to stop the presses to actually focus and make sure that I'm thinking about things that I know I should be doing and then actually doing them. Because it's so easy to think about them and then just write them down, and then you go back on your business. That's another way that we wind up being wired. The brain doesn't like stopping to do brand new things, you know?
Yeah.
That's the reason. Think about it. The perfect analogy for me is when you're first learning how to drive, and the very first time that you get into a car, or if you're teaching your kids, the very first thing you're learning is not only how to drive the car, but how to respond to the traffic around you. That's a lot of stuff to think about.
Too much.
Pushing the pedal, turning the wheel, adjusting this, turning on a blinker, turning on the wipers. Oh, and then by the way, I got to watch out for everybody else that's all around me.
And there's all these rules.
Right.
Yeah.
But, as you drive the car and you become comfortable with it, it becomes muscle memory. You don't think about pushing the brake. You don't think about the blinker or whatever. You can do that without thinking, and it's almost autonomous. Is that the right word? But that's the way that we live our lives. We start to do things and we create routines, and then we literally just let it be on autopilot.
Just do it.
And autopilot is the thing that winds up being the danger. But it really is. It's the toughest thing to push out of. So that's why I do that. That's why I do this.
Any surprises this time? Anything new jump at you? Not that it has to. No pressure. That's just a question. If the answer is no, nothing new, that's fine.
So I do have a couple of new takeaways and things to think about. But I found that it's the same thing. I get really excited about going because, the adrenaline rush and, the thought of accomplishing whatever it is I'm going to accomplish, even if I don't know all of them. Because I didn't go into this one with, the perfect plan, but I learned that one a couple of years ago too. Just let it be. Typically once you start to write and let things just kind of start to flow, eventually it will start to come together as a picture. Now, that's the way my brain works. It's almost like any project, any project I'm doing for, the people that we work for or work with, or, I have to have all the pieces there. And as I start to work through the pieces, eventually the picture comes together almost like a puzzle. You can't set out actually knowing, what you want to accomplish at the end, but you don't really know how you're going to get there. And I tend to be the type who is very systematized. So I like the mechanics of how to get there, and that becomes distracting for me. So I had to reset myself a lot to go, okay, hold on a second. Don't try to solve every single problem here, which, by the way, that was one of I'm going to give you two of the takeaways today. Yeah. So one of them is, not every problem in front of my face is one that I need to solve immediately. But that's the way that I'm wired.
Wow.
I'm a troubleshooter by nature.
That's a big deal for you.
And so the easiest bright shinies that come to me, and I think y'all know that by working with me.
That'll stop you in your tracks, and then you start focusing on that one thing.
Oh.
Right, exactly. And so it's pulling myself out of the problem that doesn't need the immediate answer. And,
Man, that is fantastic to hear that you kind of know that and are going to, attempt.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal. But
Can I give an example? There have been times, just so for anybody, and so we're being specific and telling a story here. We were almost late. We were late for something one time because one of the dogs got out of the fence before we were leaving, and we got him back in, and he had to figure out why it had happened. I'm like, we're closed up. Someone left it unlatched is probably what happened. Yeah. But he wanted to find out who left it unlatched and why. And I was like, we don't have time for that right now. We need to leave. But, being wired like you are, probably for security, you dug in. And so 30 minutes later, you figured out what happened. And we were late.
I don't remember that.
Oh.
It sounds like Jodi does.
Which of our dogs
It was a concert. All of them got out because someone left the latch unlocked. And I remember having a conversation with you on the way home, like I wish we wouldn't have stopped to, watch the, backyard video for 30 minutes to figure out what had happened, because we had the dog secured. And anyway, it was because you had to solve it right then.
Yeah. I guess
I'm glad you brought it up, because it looks like he's got to solve it again right now.
Yeah, I got to solve okay, so what was it and when? What was
Someone
I doing?
who was doing some work in our backyard left it unlatched accidentally. It was not intentional.
Okay. All right.
Anyway,
I don't remember that.
I know.
Sorry. I can believe that happened. I can believe that happened.
You're a
totally.
bulldog about that sort of thing, which does make you really good in certain areas. Because if there's a problem at work, if there's something technical, Murphy will find the answer. He might ruin, he might be late, or he might
ruin something.
Whatever. Everything else might fall to the wayside because of it, even for your own benefit. You know, you might not have lunch that day, but you will figure that out.
So your solution or working on it, you're going to like decide, is this important enough that I have to tackle it now, or how?
Yeah,
are you
it's just a mental trigger. It's one simple question: does this need to be solved right now?
Mm.
And then the answer, if the answer is no, then I need to make sure that I actually capture that in notes or something so that I do follow up on it later. That's
a
all.
breakthrough for
But
you.
That's my total struggle is the distraction. And realize these little things are important because they can derail everything else that's in the plan. Everything else that I want to accomplish is easily derailed if that's a habit that I continue to engage in. Make sense?
Yes.
And and if you want to know like the broad categories.
This is why this is so good for anybody to do. If you learn to see, if we could all see ourselves clearly, you know, we could all improve.
Mm-hmm.
So what I broke my
Big deal.
my big picture items down into is as I was trying to fill the buckets is what I call it, and they wind up being the same, which is great because they should be.
You're the same person.
Yeah, is personal health, family, friendships, financial, continuing education, and career.
Wow.
That's it. And look,
This is what a successful person does.
Well, and my advice to to anybody, and look, everybody again, it's wired differently, not one size fits all. But if you're the kind of person who, it really enjoys what you do for a living, or you want to continue in your career into retirement, continuing education needs to be a part of it. There's a reason that licensed people like doctors and therapists and real estate agents, everybody, they have to insurance agencies.
Adjusters.
Everybody has continuing education. They've got to satisfy every year to keep their permit. Well, there's a reason for that. And so I think the same thing goes in life. It's just it's a personal discipline to make sure that you're just keeping up with things. And there's no one curriculum that you need to be focused on.
So cool.
It's just whatever you want to continue to grow. And so I'll give you the other takeaway, which is one I've actually been working on for the last couple of months, but I decided to write it down and remember that this really is part of the just part of the plan going forward, is welcoming obstacles. We tend to fight obstacles, and which is human nature, right? I mean, obstacles, they're called that for a reason. They get in the way, and they're frustrating. But most of us do get hung up on obstacles, very frustrated, beat our head against the wall, continue to complain whatever that this obstacle is in the way, and all that continues to do is just drain your energy. It's a negative it's a negative feed. And the reason, because once you welcome the obstacle, then you actually acknowledge it, and you're probably going to find some way around it.
My goodness.
But to show you how many times I've had to tell myself different versions of that. Many years ago, the very first book that I read on any of this was called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Best-selling book, came out in the early 90s, and what I laminated what I wrote down was this little card that talks about, stop beating your head against the wall. When you find, that the door is closed, there may be a window that's open. And which is just another way of saying the same thing that I just explained. But that's what you also, just like I have to stop and catch myself. Do I need to solve this problem right at the moment? I need to stop and catch myself and realize, okay, am I letting my energy just be sucked away by an obstacle, or am I going to solve the problem? I don't know where, it's, I think that's our perfectionist tendencies that we somehow think we're going to solve every problem in life. And that by the time that we get to be, in our 50s or 60s, that we've just cleared this massive path of perfection for ourselves. When in fact, it's the other way around. If you don't really understand or learn how to cope with the obstacles and things now, as you get older and life changes and people you love pass away and your health starts to change. And my dad used to say it, and it's the truth. None of us are getting out of here alive. It's the truth. And so for me, it really all comes down to, if I were trying to make myself better, and it's going to be a continuous work, that's because that's what it is that I know now I'm on the back half of my life, I don't want to waste it in angst and anger and stress and other people's problems and anything else that is really not relevant to who I am or the quality of my life. that's the danger to me of things like social media and, you know, so many things. We have become a society consumed with all of the things that are around us and what other people do, instead of just really just focusing on ourselves and enjoying the quality of life that we have, because none of us are guaranteed how long it's going to be. I hope I'm here for a long time, but the one thing that's for sure is none of us are going to be here forever. So
this is, you understand what you are laying down here is very inspiring. This is church. This is so inspiring, what you're doing, what you're saying.
Well,
this is your best takeaway yet. Is this the 5th year you've done this? 4th year? This is the best one yet so far from what I'm hearing.
Really?
It's crazy good.
Was there anything specifically addressed about handling Jodi going forward?
Hold on, let me look at my notes here and see.
Handling?
Yeah, actually.
Who needs handling?
Well, I'm planning another getaway weekend by myself.
And I believe it's this weekend. Yay!
I'll take it.
I do have a
I had a
serious
good time,
question.
too.
When you're doing all this, is it pen and paper or are you typing as you go?
It's everything.
Oh, okay.
I am a train wreck when it comes to organization, that kind of stuff. Y'all know that, but it depends on, sometimes the pen to paper is the only way the ideas will flow. The electronic stuff is so that I don't forget or lose it, you know, and I capture it that way.
Nice.
It's weird. The typing thing, I can type a note to somebody and the creativity works that way, but the brainstorm has got to be my hand moving along a piece of paper that somehow creates that physical connection in my brain. So yeah. So I had literally I had one suitcase just full of notebooks, iPad, laptop, and all of that. Yeah. It's
true. I wondered where you were going with all that stuff.
Did you bring any clothes?
Yes, actually, but I didn't bring enough clothes.
Oh.
I know. I had to rewear the same shirt twice.
Yeah, you left one shirt hanging in the laundry room. I saw that. Anyway, you are just, look at you. Becoming a better man for yourself, a better version of yourself.
Right. It's a day-by-day thing. Hope it helps somebody.
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi podcast.